Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us. Today, for today's update, I'm joined by Reverend Gerald Brown, who is the Executive Director of the Citizens Advisory Board on Police and Community Relations for the City of San Diego. Today, this afternoon, we continue to see protests throughout our nation and throughout our region. And as of right now, that activity has been mainly peaceful. And in fact, since Sunday night, we've seen a significant decrease in violence and vandalism. Here's a couple of numbers to help put that in perspective. Sunday, there was 94 arrests. Monday, 17 arrests. And Tuesday, just 2 arrests. Another positive sign, since Monday night, no protests have been declared an unlawful assembly by the San Diego Police Department. The more that the bad actors stay at home, the more the voices of the people in our community will be heard. That doesn't happen by accident. It takes 2 essential ingredients. First, community advocates that organize and that lead, that peacefully lead. I want to acknowledge the civic, the faith, and community leaders. I met with several of them in my office earlier this week. They have been very clear, and I appreciate their continued voices. They will not tolerate violence in their ranks. And I thank them for keeping the vast majority of protests productive and peaceful. The second ingredient, of course, to keeping the peace is our law enforcement. I want to acknowledge and thank our San Diego police officers under the leadership of Chief Nislight. All officer vacations have been canceled. There's no time off. They are working 12-hour shifts. And they put on the uniform every day to keep all of us safe. Protesters, residents, and all of our communities. I've worked with my colleagues on the City Council for the past several years on a robust recruitment and retention plan for our San Diego PD. And that's because we want the absolute best and brightest in our department. We want officers who come from the community, who look like our community. We have much more work to do. Our entire country does. So we will continue to urge all of the protests to be peaceful. We will continue to monitor them closely this afternoon and this evening. And for those that do the wrong thing, SDPD is ready to take swift and decisive action. And as we move forward, we look forward to continuing the work with our department and our community to make our city a better place for everyone in it. Today I'd like to provide a couple of updates. First, on the ballot initiative related to police oversight. And second, on last night's special meeting of the Human Relations Commission. First topic, now more than ever, we must do everything that we can do to continue building trust between the community and the San Diego Police Department. Everyone shares the same desire to keep our communities safe, to keep all of our communities safe. And our San Diego Police Department, under Chief Nislight, welcomes that accountability. In fact, that accountability is a hallmark for the department over the last several years. Accountability is important. It's critical because it helps all of our officers do their job with the support of the community that they are serving and from the communities that they put on the badge to protect. This independent police oversight measure, this new ballot measure, in my opinion, enhances that trust and that oversight process. And it will help bolster trust between the community and the department. It would be an independent commission with its own legal counsel, much like the City of San Diego's Ethics Commission. And it would have the authority to review and investigate a wide breadth of misconduct. We have more work to do to strengthen the relationship with the community and the department. But I also want to acknowledge that our department has taken action to reform on many fronts, being one of the first big cities in the nation to implement the use of body-worn cameras for all San Diego Police Department officers, publishing all policies and procedures online for transparency. And just this week, of course, as we announced, putting a stop to the carotid restraint, a policy that is still in effect in many other cities. But since that announcement, we have seen other entities follow suit. Moments ago, both Sheriff Gore, the La Mesa Police Department, and the Coronado Police Department put a stop to the use of the carotid restraint. I think this is welcome news. I applaud the sheriff and the mayor and the city council and the police chiefs of La Mesa and Coronado for their actions ending this carotid restraint. Just a few weeks ago, I stood with Chief Nislite and we announced San Diego again as one of the safest big cities in the country. And that's one of the reasons why our officers are so dedicated to working closely with the community to keep all of our neighborhoods safe. This ballot measure, which I'm confident will be before voters in November, will help our officers continue to operate with the trust and the support of the community. That's why I believe this is so important. My next topic today is an update on the first of several special committee meetings that we are having. As our city has responded to the global health pandemic, public meetings are occurring virtually and streaming online. This includes our board and commission meetings. And in the light of last week's events, I called for special meetings from the following committees: the Human Relations Committee, the Citizens Advisory Board on Police and Community Relations, and the Community Review Board on Police Practices. There are really two goals to these meetings: soliciting feedback from the community and continuing the conversation about police de-escalation techniques and why those are so important. And secondly, increasing and facilitating further dialogue and understanding between police officers and the neighborhoods that they proudly serve. Last night, the Human Relations Commission met virtually and heard from hundreds of San Diegans. And the main outcome of last night's productive discussion was a series of recommendations in response to current events, including the formal condemnation of the Minneapolis officers' actions that wrongfully took the life of George Floyd, formal condemnation of systemic racism, and supporting actions to ensure that what happened in Minneapolis won't happen in San Diego. Tonight, the Community Advisory Board will also hold a virtual meeting. And tomorrow, the Community Review Board will hold theirs. Both will be at 6 p.m. and both can be viewed on the City of San Diego's YouTube page. Some information is on your screen now. And now I'd like to invite Reverend Brown to say a few words about these meetings and how important they are to our city. Reverend, thank you for your continued work on so many areas for our city and for the community, and particularly for police and community relations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. I am Reverend Gerald Brown. I serve as the Executive Director for the City of San Diego's Citizens Advisory Board on Police and Community Relations. Before I go into the commission, I would like to tell you just a little bit about myself. My family and I have lived here since 1965, over 55 years. I went to St. Jude's Academy, Pacific Beach, and Gompers Middle School. I attended Lincoln High School, and I graduated from Morris High School. I've served in the Marines for 22 years, and I always come back to San Diego as my home. I've raised my children here. I'm a great-grandfather, a grandfather to 11, and a father of 6. Each day I pray for their safety. You see, I know what it's like to be profiled. I know what it's like to be followed in a store. I know what it's like to feel the pain of hopelessness, even as Mr. Floyd called out for his mama in the last minutes of his life. I know what it's like to not have a voice. That's why I'm happy to be the Executive Director of the Citizens Advisory Board on Police and Community Relations. The primary functions of the board is to establish studies, consult and advise the mayor and the city council, the chief operating officer on police and community relations and crime prevention efforts. Secondly, the CAB was created to promote and encourage open communication and cooperation between the police department and residents of the city and develop and make recommendations directed towards informing the community of its rights. When coming into contact with police officers, finally, the CABS functions as a method of community participation in recommending and reviewing policies, practices, and programs designed to make law enforcement more sensitive and effective to the needs of its citizens. The advisory board consists of members from all 9 city districts, a youth expert, a police union representative, and other representatives, in total 15 individuals. Tonight's special CAB meeting is an opportunity to have your voice heard. It is an opportunity for us to listen to one another. It is an opportunity to work together towards a tangible solution in November for an independent review commission for our city and for our communities. We have dozens and dozens of public comments already submitted. I think at last count we've had close to 100. Thank you for participating, and as the mayor said, we're looking forward to channeling this engagement towards working together on a ballot initiative in November. Even more than that, it is an opportunity to build trust between the citizens and law enforcement. This is truly why the CAB, or the Citizen Advisory Board, exists, that every citizen's voice may be heard. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Reverend Brown. Thank you, Gerald. Thank you for all of your work on behalf of for our entire city, and your passion and your dedication. That concludes today's update. I do not believe we have any questions from members of the media. Thank you all, San Diego, and I look forward to briefing tomorrow.